Discover Help presents Stress-Free Living with Ray Samich and Mr. Stress-Free Ratanjit S. Sandhi. This audio program is an unscripted and unrehearsed conversation between Ray and Ratanjit. It is shared with you in hope of adding value to your life. We encourage you to listen to this program in its entirety to receive the full impact of its message. Sit back, relax, open your heart, mind, and soul to this edition of Stress-Free Living.
Welcome to Stress-Free Living. I'm Ray Samich, and I'd like to introduce all of you once again to my longtime radio colleague, co-host of our program, and my spiritual brother, Ratanjit Sandhi. Ratanjit, how are you today?
Wonderful, Ray. How are you?
Excellent, thank you. And I'm intrigued, as I always am, by the topic that we have chosen for our show, because acceptance is a topic that we have shared discussion on many, many times. And even when we don't do a show on acceptance, we end up somehow fitting it into the topic, the discussion, because it's so vital. But to actually have it as a habit, to actually not have to think about it or understand it when we're coping with something that requires acceptance, takes it to a whole different level. As you say all the time, we don't live by our knowledge, we live by our habits. So in a few minutes, we're going to start talking today about how we can make acceptance a habit. So it just kicks in and it becomes a part of our life all the time, whether things are going well or not, that we can have that. Before we get to that part of the show, though, for people that maybe haven't been with us before or they haven't heard our conversations about acceptance, let's do some general ideas about acceptance, because you have maybe a different view of that word and of that thought process than some others. I know you always say that there's a couple of different kinds of acceptance, right?
You know, what happens is when we confront something which is not desirable for us, beyond our expectation, totally opposite to our expectation. So it is difficult to accept that, because that is what we have worked hard for, and the normal conditions dictate that that is what is going to happen, but it doesn't happen. And so what went wrong? So why would we accept this? You know, there's other side of acceptance. When you look at the professionals, doctors, firefighters, they basically accept the adverse conditions of the patient or of the condition which is catching fire. They accept the fire, and that's why they can fight it. You know, acceptance, if we do not accept because that is not what is expected, so we nitpick on why it happened to us. We waste so much time on that exercise rather than accepting and going ahead. And analysis why it happened is important, but that is after we accept this. You know, our acceptance puts us into the future, is the present. Otherwise, we are parked in the past, why it happened. This is what I expected. This is what happened. This happened to him or her, and I have the same condition. Why did it not happen to me? So we are parked in past or in the future. We are now anticipating this condition which is given to me. Now, what is going to happen? I think of the worst situations. either past or future, and I'm not really in the present. So only action you can take is in the present. You can do something about it. But you cannot do something until you accept it. I give the example of a professional card player. When we are playing with profession and there are other two players who are basically novice, the new players, and when their cards are distributed, and the new players will always complain about the card. Oh my goodness. And the professional never complains about the card. They play the game with the cards they are dealt with because that is the game. So that card is actually inviting their creativity, is challenging their skills. And when we use our creativity and our skills, we feel satisfied. And when the cards we have, which are very advantageous and good cards, and we win the game, and that is greed. It's not creativity. So when we deal with the situation we are presented in and put ourselves in the present, it gives us enormous power, right?
The other aspect of what we've talked about it, and again, we're going to move into making it a habit. That's the real core of today's show. But the other thing is when we talk about the kind of what acceptance is or true acceptance, what it isn't, I think a lot of us take acceptance and we do it very grudgingly. We do it almost as we give up. We've been trying to understand why it happened, how it happened, why it happened to me. I'm a good person, and yet this terrible thing happened to me. It doesn't add up. I'm upset about it. It isn't truly acceptance at that point. It's just giving up. It's just saying, I don't understand it. I don't like it, but I can't do anything about it. So I'm just going to go along with it. And with that kind of a mentality, there's always, I think, you still can't let go. You still are obsessed with that. Even if it's in the back of your mind, it's in there that life isn't fair, that you've been mistreated or treated improperly compared to that balance of we were good, so we should have had good things happen to us, or maybe someone did us an injustice and we still have that resentment against them. Whatever it might be, that isn't acceptance, right? I mean, that is, our brains are amazing. We can kind of shift something to the back of the brain, but when you accept it, you do let go at that point.
Actually, you're absolutely right. Normally, when we call acceptance, is people say, okay, I have to live with this. This is the condition. This is the condition I'm dealt with. So what do I do? Actually, that is a starting point. And many times, the adversity challenges, and you end up having a better condition than you were if you handle it properly. So the last show we did, that all the miseries and difficulties are blessings. Once you realize that that is the new starting point, it takes you away from the condition you have taken for granted, you have lived in, and you do not want to change. So the adversity challenges those situations. So you have to find the new ground. You have to find the new situation. And many times the new situation, the new ground is much better than what it was before. So acceptance actually, when we are accepting, knowing that there are good possibility waiting for us, this situation is only uh, giving me signal to move and find the new situation which is better. So excitement and gratefulness both would come into you. And those are necessary to accept in the right manner, right?
I want to dwell on this just a little bit more because if we're going to try to adopt a habit that is going to be life-changing for us and so beneficial, we have to we have to understand what we're trying to adapt, what that habit really is. And so I think we need to talk through this acceptance just a little bit more, Ratanjit, because the more we've just talked and I've just listened to you, that what we've just talked about is the kind of acceptance that I think most of us actually practice. That's the type that we do. It's, we think we're so smart. We think that, whatever we've learned in our life, whether it's in a classroom or whether it's through life itself, we just think we are in control more than we really are. So with that mindset, that confidence, maybe that overconfidence, we immediately evaluate something that happened to us and we say, this is terrible. This didn't meet my expectations, which is number one. But beyond that, it's a horrific thing that happened. It's not good. And the reality is that we don't know if it's good. We don't know, maybe on the surface it is, in the moment, maybe it is a tragedy, but we don't know how that was designed to play out over a lifetime or over the existence of the world and the billions of people that are in it. And so, but we think we are so smart. We think that we can analyze it, but our data is so limited, right? And so it's hard for us to accept it if we think it's terrible. But if we just even would think that maybe it isn't quite as terrible as we thought, maybe there is a plan, maybe there is a reason why this happened, which gives me reason to accept it as opposed to immediately judging it as being a tragedy. What do you think?
A lot of our listeners who are listening and saying, what are the rubbish you're talking? And when we are analyzed diagnosis with the terminal disease, and you have only 4 months or 1 year or something to live, how do you accept that? So how do you live with that? Fundamentally, we live in the falsehood all our life. That challenges us to find the reality of life. And once we find the reality of life, we are so peaceful. And death is not a threat anymore. The reality of life is that we are sent here temporarily, only for a short time. And we can be called back anytime, which is not in our control. So understanding that I am not the human body is going to die. Human body has a limited life. I am the enlivening force which exists in the human body. Human body after death have all the organs still intact. We can use the heart and kidney and liver and transplant it to another person from a dead being. But this dead body, what it is missing is the enlivening force which brings life in it. So no cancer, no heart attack can ever touch this enlivening force. So that is intact. That will always remain there. So it's not the end of real us. The human body ends up, so it's always when you go on vacation, someday you have to leave. And your vacation was of 2 weeks, and suddenly you are called upon by an emergency and you have to leave fourth day on your trip. But that is still a vacation. Is it okay? You can come back and have the enjoyment of the vacation. So that reality you have to live in all the time. That is only which mindset is going to allow you to accept things which happen to you in a different manner. So if you are confronted with a disease or something which is abnormal, if you are able to find the cure of that, you can find a solution to that problem. You can actually help so many other people who are going through the same situation. So we are confronted with situation to challenge your creativity, challenge your real mission of adding the highest value. And once this you accept, it challenges you like a laser point into finding the solution of that problem, right?
Ratanjit, how do we balance the fact that we have to take personal responsibility? You know, the divine gave us all kinds of talents and wisdom and intellect and emotions and all types of skill sets, so that, and we have our own will to do what we want and to think the way we want to think and to have the career path and the relationships that we want to. So we have those responsibilities to take charge of our life. And yet we also have to accept a plan and believe that there is a plan that is more important than anything that we plan to do ourselves. So to try to give this into a practical term, a young person at a in sixth grade, he decides that he wants to be a doctor. And so at that point, even at that young age, at 12 years old, he starts figuring out and reading books and understanding all kinds of things about medicine. And he does it all through high school, and he does it all through college. And then he goes on to medical school, and he passes all the tests and does all the residencies and internships and everything else. And finally, at 30 years old, he's a full-fledged doctor and he's ready to go. And something tragic happens. You know, he gets that terminal disease, or something happens with his loved ones and he no longer is able to be a doctor because he has to do something else. How do you balance the fact that what we are taking charge of, what we are trying to do to the best of our abilities to fulfill our responsibilities to find our way in the world, could suddenly be shattered by divine intervention with a different plan? Are we, doesn't that in some ways deflate us from even trying to take control of our life? And we should just say, whatever the divine wants, that his will be done, and be done with it. How do we, that can be difficult in the acceptance process, because we're trying to take charge and do what we feel we should do. How can we accept when that all gets blown up?
You know, what happens is, before I can answer, I want to take some information from the earlier shows we have done.
Okay.
We had talked about three distinct elements of this human body, human experience. One is this human body, which knows it is going to die. It can be hurt. It has some desire. It has to be fed, or it is going to starve. It has some desires. It has some, limitations. And then there is intellectual brain, which is our computer. So our human body is gifted with five senses. You can see and you can hear, you can, taste, and so five senses, we collect our data from five senses. And these senses, when the human body controls our computer, our brain, because ultimately this brain directs all the actions and all our thinking and all our everything we have, whether we are in stress or we are happy or we are content, it's all action of the brain. And when human body controls the brain, it parts in greed and not enough, fear, and what is in it for me, that paradigm. So what else is there? So when we realize there is another thing which is integral for our life, which is the force which enlivens us. And when our mind, our brain is run by this force which enlivens us, basically it sees the same force present everywhere. The purpose of our life becomes clear, is to serve the divine force which is present within us and around us. So it takes our mind from all the basic problems which we have and focuses us on adding the highest value. And your contentment, your happiness, there are two types of happinesses, which is one is felt by our five senses, what ice cream or what tastes good. If I own a big home, if I have a lot of money, all these things are fed by our five senses, our human body mode. But the true happiness experienced by when our mind is directed by the divine force is only happen to us when we serve, when we give, when we make a difference. That is a true happiness. This other happiness has a limit. We can only eat so much ice cream. You can only have so much wealth. Wealth itself becomes a problem. And the definition of poison is if you have more than what you need, it's poison. And in this greedy mode of the human body, nothing is ever enough. We become our own enemies. And it is only in the divine mode we park ourselves to experience the true happiness. It is only in that mode the real life can be lived. Otherwise, we are living in slavery of five senses. The true freedom only happens when we live directed by our inner divine power. Right?
So I guess you did answer my question indirectly, because the way I heard you say this is that even if we have our human drive, our human skill sets, intellect, emotions to try to choose what we should do, we have to believe that that divine that divine presence within us knows exactly what is best for us in the universe, in because we're all connected, and that oneness brings me to be a part of everything else, everyone else that's out there. So we have to accept that. And that takes us to the acceptance again that says, I plan to be an Olympic athlete. I worked for 25 years to be an Olympic athlete, but then I had a career-ending injury, and it's terrible. It's horrific after all of that effort, but I have to accept that because there is a different purpose for me than I was able to understand with my own brain. I think this has been a good summary here for the first half of our program in terms of the importance of acceptance and how it is needed to be done. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about how we can make it a habit, because that is the key. If we don't have to think it through and rationalize, if we can just be like that firefighter trained how to fight the fire, because they've made it a habit, they've made it part of who they are, just to be able to go in and do it, even if it seems impossible at the worst times, to be able to implement that habit. That's what we're going to come back and talk about on this edition of Stress Free Living. Please stay with us. All right, welcome to some of the folks that have joined us a little bit late. If anybody's got a thought, we've got about 90 seconds. Question for Ratanjit?
We have our old member, Darby.
He's back, yeah.
Yeah,
It's been a while.
Darby, how are you?
Hi, Ratanjit. Hello, Ray.
Hello, Darby. Good to have you back.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's good to be back. Thank you.
How is everything going with you and your family?
Well, there's been a lot of loss, but I'm still here.
Well,
Wonderful.
that is life.
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's so good to see you all. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you for joining us. Good to have all of you here with us. Thank you for joining us here today. We're going to be back in just a second, so I guess keep your comments there for the next break, please. Feel free to ask us a question I can ask for Ratanjit. Ready to talk about making it a habit, Ratanjit? Let's get to it.
everybody's so quiet.
Yeah, but it's quiet today. Good thing we're not.
Ready to go back?
We are back on Stress Free Living. Ratanjit Sande, yours truly, Ray Samich, with you, talking about making a habit of acceptance. Why we need to be able to kick that in automatically, because as Ratanjit has said so many times, even though we know what to do, even though our knowledge base says you should accept and have acceptance, what we do in our life is not based on what we know, it's based on the habits that we live. So Ratanjit, let's get right to it. How do you make it a habit? This is, to me, one of the most difficult habits. We can do things like make it a habit of brushing our teeth, or making a habit of eating the right foods. We can use those disciplines to start those kind of habits. We can maybe even make it a habit of counting to 5 before we say something that we would regret when we get angry or we get frustrated or whatever. We can try to teach ourselves those disciplines to make good habits, get in the habit of going to the gym and walking the treadmill. And those are habits that we can do. But acceptance is a whole different level. Acceptance is our whole being. You know, you mentioned the body, the intellect, the force, the divine force. It's it is realizing that this whole big thing, our very essence, we have to give up a lot of what we would normally do and simply accept. How do we start that habit?
You know, I remember when I was very young and I felt sick and doctor was going to give me an injection. And I was completely paranoid. I was crying and I didn't want any injection. So my father picked me up and hugged me and he says, "It's going to be all right. I'm with you." So when my dad took me and put me in her laps and when they injected me, so my fear and whole thing came down. And when you have a open heart surgery, which is amazingly complicated and this thing, and suddenly you have the best doctor, the best hospital, so your anxiety goes down. You have confidence in the outcome of these. So similarly, once you realize that nothing happens without the consent of the divine force within me, and once you have the divinity, which is you have a habit of living in that divine force modem, and suddenly your whole anxiety becomes less. Acceptance cannot be done without gratefulness. Acceptance cannot be done without complete faith in the divine power. Acceptance cannot be done without removing the anxiety and fear and greed in us. So that is a fundamental part of this. So before we accept, we have to understand the meaning of gratefulness and living in the gratefulness all the time. We have to first cultivate a habit of living in gratefulness. Every action, every situation, we should be grateful for. And naturally, acceptance automatically follows. Ray?
I appreciate everything you just said. I loved your example. Um, I don't, when you gave the example of your dad saying everything is okay and putting you on his lap when the doctor gave you the injection, then, you know, my mind went to the idea of, you know, figuratively the divine putting me on his lap, okay, and wrapping his loving arms around me, saying, it's okay. I know, you know, you don't think this is good for you, but it is good for you. And you need this in order for you to be able to get better. You need this injection. And your dad may not have used those words, but you felt that comfort in him. You mentioned the hospital where you said, okay, you know, I know I'm very, very sick. I need open heart surgery, but as bad as that is, as risky as that is, that they're actually going to go inside of me and open up my heart, I am at the best hospital that I possibly can be at with the best care and the best, most experienced, knowledgeable, wonderful staff of people to take care of me. And yes, you know, because our brain runs us so many times, we feel better then that we have this loving arms around us again by way of the hospital staff. I don't get, however, the gratefulness with those two examples. I don't, if it starts with gratefulness, if acceptance starts with gratefulness, how does that relate to those two stories? Is that because I should be grateful that I have this care, that I have this love around me? How does that connect? I missed it.
You know, when you have the ultimate power within you, it's bigger than the doctor and your father and everyone, because that is around you, within you, and you live within that, and you have to be grateful for that power to be within you. You have to be grateful for amazing reality which happens to you, to realize the presence of the great power within you, around you. So until you have reverence for that, until you have love for that, until you have respect for that, for your gratefulness is outcome of all those things. You are grateful. And as a consequence, you have automatically faith in it. Nothing bad is going to happen when you have loving and protecting power within you, around you. Whatever happens is for the best. For whatever happens is given me the new conditions, new challenges to utilize and feel the ultimate reality, ultimate mission of my life. So that is where the gratefulness comes in me.
You know, Ratanjit, you've taken this to a little different level, or a lot different level than I think most people would find. Gratefulness is not a new thought by any stretch. I mean, there's a lot of stories you can read, a lot of books that have been written about it, a lot of talks presented on it. But the great majority of them are in the mode of saying, every day make a list of everything to be grateful for. Or in a moment of grief or loss, make a list of at least 10 things that you have to be grateful for, even in this moment. And most of those types of lists that we're supposed to make, or thoughts that we're supposed to have, relate to blessings that we still have in our life. All right, I still have these good things. I still have my health. I still have my job. I still have my house. I still have my family. Whatever the list might be that you put on there. And maybe they do get into a depth that says, I'm alive. You know, I'm grateful for my life. I'm grateful that I'm able to breathe and see the sun and hear the birds singing. So you make those kind of lists. But in your words just a few minutes ago, you talked about being grateful that the divine is within me, that I am empowered by this divinity. And I'm sure that's on some people's lists. I'm sure that there are some experts that would include that, but not many. Because mostly we do it from a human mode. We do it for a gratefulness for life and everything that goes along with life as a human being, not so much in a spiritual mode that is grateful for the divinity within us. And is that essential? Is not only the gratefulness that we have for things around us, but is it essential that we're grateful for this empowerment from the divinity?
You know, there are two kinds of gratefulness. One is in the human body mode, which is all directed by what I own. Although we use the word blessing, it only becomes blessing when we are in the divine mode. We call it blessing to our ownership, to our greed. So I have my home and my this thing, I'm grateful for this, and my mine. So that is not really gratefulness. If those things are taken away, say, God, what did you do to me? What did I do?
Right.
You know, the gratefulness, the true gratefulness never happens until you realize the ultimate gift is present within you. Without the power enlivening you, you are a dead body. So we are amazingly grateful for the power present within you. And that is, all these other things becomes insignificant. That is why your threshold of acceptance is so low. You can accept anything because nothing is lost, because your real possession is the power within you. All these other things which I give so much importance are not. And the reason the situation has been changed for me is to challenge my creativity, my new direction, and ultimately I'm going to end up being a better than what I was. So acceptance comes with a great excitement and great reverence and great thankfulness when we are parked in the divine mode. Right?
I really, I want to go back and listen to how you presented that, because you are again right. When we count our blessings, and that sounds like such a wonderful thing to do, and I guess it is compared to not counting our blessings. But when we do that, we are really making a list of all the things that I own, that have been given to me, that now I almost place all my happiness, all my appreciation for life is based on these things that I have. And then if those should leave, or if I compare them to how much now I monetize them, now I quantify them, and I say, I'm very grateful that I have this $100,000 home, but I still wish I had a $200,000 home. I'm very grateful for my little car, but I still wish I had a bigger car. And so it isn't true gratefulness if we're still quantifying it and we're still kind of doing it in that human mode. To add that element of understanding that the ultimate gratefulness doesn't start with any of those things. It starts with appreciating the divine within me, and how that leaves me empowered to be a trillionaire, because I have all of the resources of the world available to me, including every person that I can touch and every creative thought that comes into my brain, and that I can interact with others to fulfill my purpose. That takes gratefulness to a whole different level. We need to take a quick break again. We'll do it. We'll come right back, and we'll add that element of faith as also the habit to allow us to have acceptance in our life. We'll be right back. All right, everyone. 90 seconds. If anyone wants to open up their mic and ask a question. I know we're running out of time, but we'll try to get it in if you like.
Ray and Dr. Sande, Steve Marsh here.
Yes.
This is a little off what you were just talking about, but what's the difference between acceptance and saying giving it up, give it up. Like it is what it is, so move on. You can't do anything about the past. We live in the present. That it doesn't mean we shouldn't try, but I'm a little confused between acceptance, meaning it happened, versus it is what it is. But maybe it is what it is doesn't show gratefulness. Going back to what you were just saying. So, if you could help me with that.
I don't think we are, I'm so sorry, but I don't think we're going to have time to get back into that. But we actually did cover it early on in the show today. So I don't know if maybe you weren't on quite yet, but I think we did touch on that a little bit. But I don't think we'll have a chance to go back to that this time. I'm so sorry. Anybody have another quick thought? Okay, maybe Ratanjit, you can clarify that after the show's over too, in our post show.
Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Marsh, we can cover it there. Just won't be able to get it in the next. We'll only have about 7 minutes of airtime.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a quick question or thought? We've just got a couple seconds left.
We bombed. Nobody accepting what I said.
We're hard to accept today.
Yeah.
This is Stress Free Living. Ray Samich, Ratanjit Sandhi with you today, talking about making acceptance a habit. And Ratanjit, so far we've covered the fact that it has to start with true gratefulness, not just gratefulness for the possessions that we've accumulated, that we so-call blessings, but truly understanding that we are empowered and that we have this divine power that has been given to us that flows through us as it flows through everyone else around us. You also mentioned that we have to understand and have faith. And let's just touch on that for a few minutes, because we don't talk much about faith in this program. We really haven't done too much on that. How do you mean faith in accepting that this truly is the way it's supposed to be?
Faith, again, there are two ways to have faith. You can go to your church or you can go to your temple and listen to this, and you have faith in God. So then you have separated the God from you, the God you worship. But the real God is within you. Until you connect to that God, the true faith is only a word and a glorification of that you have the faith. It doesn't work. We have more churches and more synagogues and more temples and more mosques ever in the life of the human history. We have less of spiritualism ever in the life of the human history. It doesn't work until we realize where the divine power is. Divine power is not confined to a particular religion. Divine power is what religion is supposed to teach us, to tell us where it is. And it is. If you understand the scripture, it is telling you where it is. But we, in the human body mode, read the scripture. And we use the scripture and the church to fulfill our needs of human body, our desires, our greed, confront our fears. And that is what we use it for. So ultimately, when you realize from every breath you take the presence of the divine force within you, until every breath you take reminds you of that, If it doesn't remind you of that, no matter how many other things you would do, will not make you move into the divinity, divine modem. So you have this mechanism provided by the divinity to remind you every time you breathe, you see the presence within you. And your gratefulness should be with every breath you take. So it's not that you get up in the morning and you are grateful and you bow your head and you do your prayers. Every living moment of that is a prayer. And prayer to the force which is you see and feel by the every breath you take. And until you form that habit, other habits cannot be formed. So anytime when you're not talking or when you're not doing anything, you have to be constantly aware. And not only that, even during the conversation, doing your work on computer, you have to be constantly subconsciously aware of this breath which is taking. And you need to be grateful for divinity to be present within you. So until you focus on that, nothing else is going to work. Right?
It has hit me differently this time than any other time I've thought about the gratefulness for the every breath I take has always been coming back to me to say, I'm alive, and I should be grateful for the fact that I am alive. So you hear that expression a lot, being grateful for every breath that I take. Yes, that is a wonderful thing because it means that I'm alive. But you've again added something very critical to that every breath I take is a reminder of the divinity within me, the empowerment that I have because of the life that is flowing through me. And it does take it out of the me mode, because when I'm grateful for every breath I take, that means, okay, I'm alive, it's about me. When I am grateful for the breath that has been placed within me by the divine, proving that the divine is within me, it has changed the focus of that from me to the divine gift, the divine presence. And that is a staggering change that I've never thought of until your last few words. It suddenly, you gave the example of your dad putting his arms around you. It's like the ultimate arms being placed around me to know that within every breath I take is the presence of that divine. It's like, okay, why should I be worried about an injection? Why should I be worried about any other tragedy that confronts me? Why should I be worried about any fear or threat that faces me when I have that power of the divine within every breath that I take? I mean, it really is a game changer in terms, and it's because I've changed the focus from me to that reality.
Yeah, absolutely. And the breath, every breath you take, you want to extend that breath. And more you extend it, more feeling you will have in the breath. You take the breath with gratefulness and great reverence. And, they say that breathing is important for health. Ultimately, your body is going to be empowered with good health if you understood how to take the breath, how to respect the breath and created a feeling of ultimate gratefulness within you. And this will always give you better chemicals, better hormones produced in your human body, which is going to repair the human body, which is going to keep it healthier than ever before.
Ratanjit, that'll have to be the last word. We're out of time here. Thank you so much for sharing so many wonderful thoughts with us today. Thank you for joining us for this program. We hope that we have added value to your life. Remember, we're all playing the same game. Have a great day. We'll talk to you again real soon. All right. Such a quick show today. We are now clear. And if any of you would like to express a thought, and we'll get back with Dr. Marsh too, in terms of answering his question, clarifying that. But does anybody else have a thought you'd like to express?
Please unmute
Okay.
yourself and share with us.
Ratanjit, then maybe why don't you let's start with that question from Dr. Marsh. The idea of giving up is not acceptance.
So again, in the human body mode, we are always caught in what is mine and what is not mine. I give up. And we are given this training right from the childhood. And you are this is yours, this is your sister, this is your mother, this is your home, this is your religion, and this is, so we are brainwashed with this ownership mode. And suddenly to
but I found these results on search.
to give up anything in the human body mode is it causes acceptance with the remorse. So okay, I accept this. That what else can I do? So basically, when we park our acceptance based on our expectations, then we are basically going to be remorse. The true acceptance cannot come from first dismantling this false belief that we own anything, including our human body. So that itself is very difficult. When you try to understand what we are saying in the human body mode, you will never understand it. We have to shift your thinking in the divine mode and understand that nothing is owned by us, including our human body. So how do we expect anything? Acceptance is only encouraged by us to accept, and basically in the human body mode, we will never be able to accept. We have to be parking ourselves into gratefulness mode. I don't know whether I explained that. Ray, can you explain further?
No, I think we've covered that a few times. Dr. Marsh, too, we've done complete shows on acceptance. I'm happy to say that we've updated every show now that we've done over the last few years and added them to the YouTube library, Stress Free Living Radio. So there's a couple of shows at least on acceptance in more detail, and would, encourage you, if there's some thoughts on that you may want to be able to refresh with some of those shows. We've added 127 shows now out there on our Stress Free channel. We're looking to add a few more of the old vintage shows up there as well. Anybody else have a thought for any?
Well, I'm going to give you another thought or a question.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
And I appreciate you pointing it out. I think it's because I always have, in my lifetime, I've had so much trouble with acceptance. I try to do it. I try to park myself in gratefulness, but it's not so easy. Right? So that's why I focus on it. The other thing is, so when you see someone who has a friend, a relative who has a loss, or something that they've gone through or they're going through that is so difficult for them, how do you say to them, well, maybe it'll work out great? You know, you have to show gratefulness, and the person's in the middle of this terrible, you know, it could be if somebody getting sick, it could be, as you said, and you want to make them feel better. Somehow, if you say to them, well, you try and be grateful because at some point this will work out. How does one help another person who's going through a difficult time? Because saying, well, you need to be accepting doesn't work in those manners. How can we help those people?
You know, the last word you want to use initiating that conversation is acceptance. You basically make them realize who they are first. You know, you have to ask them, you have to share with them that this human body, I'm a doctor, and this human body remains there. And suddenly, this human body is not operating and moving, or is dead. And all the organs are still present in this human body. So, what is missing is the life. What is life? There's a force, divine force, which is present in this human body, similar to when you light a light bulb. Electricity is present in this light bulb at that point. When you switch on, that light bulb has a live wire connection to the powerhouse, and the light in the bulb is not because of the bulb, is because of the power coming from the powerhouse. Similarly, when we are alive, we are connected to the power, which is one power uniting all of us and enlivening all of us. And that one power is who we are. We are not a human body. So that conversation should be had first. And obviously, it is going to be difficult initially for them to understand and comprehend. But that thought has to be mulled within their brain, and eventually they have to accept that thought without they understand acceptance. I don't know whether I made any sense to you, Dr. Marsh.
I think I love your analogy of the metaphor of the bulb. It's just hard when you want to comfort people and say maybe you need to see beyond this, and they're in the mode. Maybe at that point they're not able to accept it, and you have to wait till a time in their own life where they feel better. It's a difficult one.
Yeah, once they realize who they
very
are,
much.
they will be able to accept everything.
Yeah. The I think the last few words of the show, the last final segment was the most powerful to me, because when you are trying to comfort somebody and you say, as it's prone to do, you see this all over the internet and all over the books, make a list of everything you're grateful for. They really don't want to hear it at that moment. If they've been through some kind of an incredible tragedy, they've just lost their spouse or their child or something, or they got that death sentence for their life that they have a month to live. They're not thinking about what to be grateful for. They're just not. And you can try to push that and say, hey, you've still got this, and you still had 40 years with your spouse, or you still, you look at all those wonderful trips you had around the world and all of those experiences and things. And they don't want to hear that, because in their mind at that point, on a relative scale, they're losing, or they just lost something so much bigger than anything they could be grateful for. But what Ratanjit said there at the end was not only the fact that you can breathe in the morning, because maybe they don't even want to breathe. Maybe at this point they wish they were dead and they don't even want to have that breath. So, even that isn't something in that worst moment for them to be grateful for. But if you say that 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 breath is the divinity that has been placed within you, to Ratanjit's point, who you really are. So when you have that breath every moment, it is an awakening of the fact that it's that divinity within you that's giving you that breath that lives within you with that ability to do anything with the entire world at its disposal and every resource in the world, because that is the divine. That that is a really awakening moment. That's a game-changing moment that just says that, yeah, that is something. I mean, that what an empowerment I have, even in this moment of tragedy. Suddenly that tragedy pales in comparison to the knowledge of that divine empowerment that is breathing within me.
When you have
That's
when you have a heart attack, that is not the time to change your diet and your your exercise and all that. You have to get on that before you have the heart attack. So acceptance would not sound logical to people who are going through tragedy. Acceptance have to be understood before the tragedy happens.
yeah. Thus the habit that we've talked about here.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
creating
you
a
have
habit
to
so it
give
kicks in.
this habit to the young children growing up and prepare them for life by giving this habit. And suddenly you make them much more efficient and much more proactive than they would be otherwise. Most of the times we talk about acceptance when tragedy happens. How do I accept it? So it's too late to learn acceptance
Yeah.
if you haven't learned it before.
Well, it's easy to accept things when everything's going well.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Sahil, go ahead.
Hello. Thank you. Can you hear me, by the way?
Yes, sure.
We can. And see you
Perfect.
too.
Lovely. Session. Some points were like quite amazing, and I really like the part where you mentioned about us being grateful for every breath that we take. But I do have a question, and in a situation where we often find ourselves in situations where we've often been done wrong by someone else, or we've been wronged in a situation, and for example, like your business partner might have lied to you, or and because of that your deal might have fallen through, or someone might have broken your trust. So eventually you have to accept the situation and forgive them, and it's a quite fine line between acceptance and forgiveness. How do you deal situations in which how do you deal situations in which you've been wronged, and how have you dealt with it?
Well, basically, you only control yourself. You don't control others.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to get your mind straight, your understanding straight. And every situation is different. Depends on how you handle that. So if somebody is I remember mentioning a story. I had a contractor who bought material to waterproof the parking decks. Remember that? And
Is
we made two types of materials. One was uh, uh, lower price and what was higher price. And the high price material had some labor saving. Actually, you pay more and you make more profit because of the labor saving. Labor is very expensive. So when I exposed this contractor for both this material, so wow, of course I will buy this expensive material. So when the time came to pay, he said, no, I'm going to only pay the lower price. Now, there was a question of several $100,000, and now what would you do? Normally, you take them to court or something, you have conflict. So how do I handle the situation? So I had a meeting with him, and he brought his attorney, his accountant, and all these people. We were only two of us. I said, basically, let's understand this. Let's keep what you like most, and I keep what I like most. So we are both happy. So what do you mean? So I said, if I accept your lower price, I'm accepting I lied to you. I want to maintain the truth. And you like money. So why don't I let you have the whole money? Keep the whole thing. Don't pay. I will not sue you or anything. The only way you can pay until you pay the whole price. Otherwise, don't pay. So meeting was over, I said, and he said, what do you mean? You are not going to take this several $100,000 which I am giving you? So I said, no, until I get the whole money, I'm not accepting the truth. So suddenly he called this engineer who specified our project. So he said, you know this guy, Ratanjit? Yes, I know him very well. So what happened? He explained to him. He said, okay, Mark, you met your match. What are you going to do? Keep the money. What Ratanjit says, he means. He's never going to sue you, or he's never going to come after you. So this guy says, but I can't sleep. So it's his problem. So after a month or so, he paid the whole price. So if you
Wow.
are very strong in your own conviction, you cannot do this same thing if you copy this. Ratanjit did this and I will do that. It will not work until you have the clear conviction of clarity of who you are and understand the wisdom of
Uh,
this concept.
wow. That's an amazing story. I've never heard that before. So thank you for that. Quite empowering.
Yeah, I just sent you a link too, so of a show that we did on understanding forgiveness.
Okay.
Because I think while they are connected, and you're right, acceptance is, and forgiveness, often go hand in hand. I think we're approaching them from an entirely different topic here. Because
Forgive.
acceptance is something that we need to do for ourselves, um,
Uh-huh.
relative to coping with a situation that has happened to us and how we go on from there, and not dwelling on it in the past. And forgiveness, while it's, sometimes it goes hand in hand with that, and sometimes it's forgiving ourselves for mistakes we've made, or forgiving others for what they've done to us, or forgiving God for what we think God did to us that he shouldn't have done, or whatever. But I think they are separate, they're connected, but I think they are really distinct. So if you want to check out that show on forgiveness, I think we spent the entire time just talking about that, and I think that was pretty interesting.
Thank you. I understand that.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah, I understand that the two almost parallel but interlinking concepts. So I will check out the link that you sent. And yeah, sorry, Dada, go ahead.
There's another way to look at forgiveness. In the human body mode, when we forgive, that is part in ego. The true forgiving only happens when we understand the power enlivening us is the power within us, and that is me. That's the real us. And then you see the power in others. So you cannot forgive the power. You can only, because the others don't know the reality, they have certain habits, they are operating in the human body mode. So basically they are concluding they are having erroneous paradigms and they are conducting themselves in the compromised manner. So at that point, once you understand that it's understanding happens in the human body, in the divine mode, and forgiveness happens in the human body mode, which is ego. There's no forgiveness in the divine force mode. It's only understanding.
Interesting.
Ray,
Thank you.
you
I
have a
love it.
comment?
No, I'm taking it in.
Hmm.
Yeah. Anybody else have a thought today on the show or your own examples, your own experiences with it?
Sandy, you have any comments or welcome you?
I'm enjoying this show of acceptance and kind of combining acceptance with gratefulness. And I think Ray, you brought this up I believe it was last weekend, with so many tragedies happening for you in your family and friend circle, where like the question was kind of like, well, if you live in this grateful manner on a regular basis and make it a habit, then does that make it lighter to go with the flow and accept the situation that is at hand? And I think it definitely does, because as we are quite grateful, it does lighten your soul and you take things differently. And when I say your soul, I mean, I'm talking about your experiences. Like it lightens you so that you're not taking something so seriously, and you look at it from a standpoint of just another experience in life that we will often have: losing a job, losing a parent, and then accepting that this comes with life. There was never meant to be a time where the tastiest things like cheeseburgers and fries were meant to be the healthiest thing. It's always about the mix in life of something that maybe in your mind so tasty may not be so great for you. Well, then why is it like having just solids is meant to be better health wise, but maybe not giving you that satisfaction on the other end? And I look at acceptance very similarly. It's like, the world is designed that way so that you can have a little flavor of everything and then choose how your mind is going to respond to the experience. So if you accept it, if we accept that the world will throw all sorts of curveballs, and it really depends on how we take that curveball. So yeah, I think it's been a great show, and accepting life the way it unfolds is very important. And I also think, I mean, someone kind of brought up, well, do we just sit back and accept what happens? Well, we are sitting back, and I would say, yeah, I'm sitting back, but I'm also being proactive. Proactive in how I accept or how I choose to have my experience. So either that experience is going to make me very upset or make me feel like, oh geez, I didn't get the right cards dealt to me. That other person always gets the right cards dealt. Or am I proactive, saying, and that proactive comes back to the practice where, yes, I am proactive that whatever cards I'm dealt with, I will deal with them. I'll be grateful for them, and I'm going to make progress every day. Whatever little progress it is, it's there. So it's a fantastic way to look at acceptance, as also being proactive in what is happening and how we perceive our experience. So that's all I had to share.
Thank you.
It's a lot. That's great. Thank you.